Hi everybody, welcome to Chapter 7, which is creating high quality environments in education. As always, I present for you the Macy Standards. We're going to be talking a lot about sort of the professionalism and the developmentally appropriate practices this time. And then we'll talk a little bit about child development and learning and why it matters and why it's important. So I want to stress this and I want you to see this. Really, this is the facilities and safety section. This is, if you're going for early childhood certification at a four-year institution, you need to really know these four chapters. 7, 8, 9, and 10 are really what aligns with the PECT exam. You will obviously need a PECT exam for an associate's degree, but if you go for a four-year degree, you really do need this. I cover this because you're going to see a direct correlation with this to the PECT exam. So if you need any help with anything, let me know, but I really would read the book. I really would focus on these chapters, and when you take the test, you're going to have to know what's in these chapters. So I tried to be very comprehensive on this. So let me stress this. If you can own and operate a successful daycare, you will make more money than somebody in a teaching position. Most daycares fail. If you're going to try to open up a daycare, I wish you the best of luck. Likelihood is your facility will fail or will just barely sustain. But if you can find one that's successful, you will make more money than somebody in a teaching position. The thing is, you have to build credibility and you have to maintain a high quality program and get accreditation. And that's what matters and that's what's important. So in Pennsylvania, a new facility opens up almost daily. They go for different age groups, special needs children, after school programs. We don't have a problem with quantity in the state of Pennsylvania. We have a problem with quality. There's probably, anywhere by you live, probably 5 to 10 places for childcare because everybody's looking to get into it. If you can design a quality program or be involved in a quality program, that's going to make you more marketable and more effective. So why does this matter? Children that are involved in a high quality program will do better in school. Children that have exposure to early literacy when they're 3 and 4 years old are going to do better when they're 5 and 6. It's going to expose them to a socialization that they might not get at home. And if you're getting exposure for them to get authority figures from parents and from another set of people, that's also going to help them as well. And that's the key for success. I value early childhood education more than any other form of education because if you start correctly in the beginning, you're going to be more successful. So people pick child care programs based on desperation. They don't do it based on, they searched out and found the best program. They don't. Most people will do it based on desperation. They go for the closest program or the one that's the most cost effective, and they don't bother to look at the quality and what's being taught there. And that can cause a problem as well. So know this and know that if you go into a highly populated area and you can create a quality program, you have a market that you can work with, which is huge. So what matters? Here are the 3 things that matters. This is a big idea. If a program is high quality, it will have small group size, a low teacher to child ratio, and people will actually have advanced educational training. This is important because all of you that are hopefully going to earn your associate's degree, you'll actually have training. And that's important, and that's going to make you more accredited than somebody who's simply just 18 or 19 years old working in a program. You're actually going to have training and know what's best and most developmentally appropriate for a child. So obviously it has to be clean, it has to be licensed, it has to have a good philosophy. We're going to talk about meals in the 3rd part of the class. If the family can be involved too, that's cool. And the toys and educational activities should be of high quality as well. So I give you a couple of resources if you want to look at these. I think they're worth investigating. The Pennsylvania Child Care Association and care.com. You can look at these for referral services. I'm obviously not going to click on the links here, but this is something that if you want to do it on your own, you're more than welcome to. So Pennsylvania, and in general, if you want to give somebody accreditation, NACCE is the way that you do an early childhood program. It's accredited through NACCE. This takes time. When a program gets accredited, it gets it for 3 years, but it's difficult to get an AC accreditation, and it takes time for a facility to get it, and it takes time for an associate's program to get one as well. So I give you the NACI Code of Ethical Conduct. I am not going to sit up here and read this, but I need to stress this. On the PECT exam, they gave bullets that were part of the NACI Code of Ethical Conduct. There are about 2 or 3 questions, you know, and this is right in the study guide for it, and they'll say, which one of these elements is part of the NACI Code of Conduct? So this is something that you could very well see on the exam, because this is an important concept and an important objective, and it's right in the practice exam. And this was in Module 1 of the PECT exam. So I would know the NACI Code of Conduct, I would familiarize myself with it, and I would understand it if you're pursuing a 4-year degree. So other accrediting bodies, each one has their own different accrediting standards. Head Start's the one I'm most familiar with, because remember, I'm coming at you guys from a public school background, so I was more connected with Head Start than I ever was with NACI, but there are other associations that you can look at for accreditation as well. So each state has their own licensing standard. You have to know that, because if your ambition is to move somewhere warm or move somewhere else, there's going to be different licensing standards depending on the state that you're in. Some of them, you know, some licensing standards don't mean much, but some, you know, prove that the program is compliant and they're good to run. I would argue that if you are a parent and you're choosing a child care facility, you're the one that should be looking for the professional accreditation if it's something that matters to you. Home-based programs, they have a separate set of regulations, and they can become licensed or registered. Some of them have on-site home inspections. That's, you know, you just basically, if they exist, and people will only look at them if a complaint is registered against them. Child care programs that are based in churches are exempt from licensing regulations. So know that if the child care program you're pursuing is church-based. So get a license from the state licensing agency. You have to check out zoning codes to make sure there aren't already too many programs in the area. If you are acquiring a building, it has to pass a certain set of inspections, your basic facilities management, that there's safety and security, and then you can get an application for a permanent license if that's the case. So if the program receives federal funds, it falls under federal regulations. So Head Start does fall under federal regulations. I want to note this. This is another important thing that you have to know. Any school and any child care facility, except one that is church-based, that was remodeled or built after 1990 must be ADA compliant. So any that are prior to 1990, they do not have to follow ADA compliance. But if there's any sort of remodeling done, it has to be ADA compliant for it to be accessible. So it's incredibly easy to find teachers for child care programs. They always need people, and people need, especially in this state where it's difficult to find a teaching job, you'll find people that are certified teachers that are trying to get experience. So you can get, if you own a facility, you don't have to pay teachers much money to work in the facility. Students need to get experience with children if they want to get a job. So they can pay you minimum wage, the student gets the experience, and you have somebody who's strongly accredited. So teacher qualifications for child care in the state of Pennsylvania are slim to none. And that's unfortunate. I hate standing here and saying that, but unfortunately it's the truth. All that you have to do is be 18 years old, a high school diploma or a GED, and pass a background check. That's it. And that's a shame. But that being said, you going through this program and taking these courses makes you more qualified. So I think that's an advantage. So research will show good programs have teachers that have 2 years of schooling, an associate's degree, and 1 course in special education. I can't stress this enough. Take as many special education courses as you possibly can. That is to your benefit, that is to your advantage. I would strongly recommend that. When I got certified to teach, I had to take 1 credit in special ed, and that was it. So that in itself, you know, is an issue as well. So you want to look for programs that potentially can, you know, have grants in place that offer on-the-job training a possibility to get CDA credentials, which some of you are interested in here. Ones that'll pay for an associate's degree, one that'll give a 4-year bachelor's degree, or advanced graduate training as well. So, what is an ideal staffing ratio? An ideal staffing ratio is, between the age of 3 to 6 is 1 adult for every 8 children. That's ideal, but if you can do less, that's obviously better. The big one that you have to worry about is this third bullet down. If you have children 2 and younger, if you're actually doing toddlers and infants in your facility, you should have 1 adult for every 4 children. They're going to nail you for an accrediting body more on this than they are on this. They're going to look more at this, and that's what they're going to focus on. If it's a developmental disability program, that's also slightly different. That should be 1 for every 5 children. So most programs have a good educational philosophy. If there's a special education component, if there's a religious program, if there's a diversity requirement, this is also something that needs to be addressed and considered as well. So every program should have these 7 elements, and all of your classes have these 7 elements. They have a physical component, a cognitive, emotional, social, a language, a self-care, and a motor skills. That goes without saying. We've seen this in all of our programs already. So health services is also important. You have to make sure that the child is kept healthy. We've already talked about this in the first part of class. But children benefit from programs if they are in a healthy and safe environment. That's a big idea, and that's a big deal as well. So most requirements is just making sure that you maintain records. All your personnel can administer first aid. They can administer CPR if necessary. That there's emergency response plans. And then there's nutrition information as well, which once again we're going to talk about nutrition in the last part of the course. So you have to maintain the following: health assessments, attendance, emergency contact information, developmental screening profiles, adult health assessments, fire and storm drills, which as you know is one of the big projects in this class, injuries, and daily health checks. So the emergency contact forms are important. You have to make sure that it is in writing, that if you're at a child care facility, that you have permission to actually administer emergency care if it's necessary. Without permission, you can't do it. That creates a problem. So you need to have an emergency plan readily available if you have multiple rooms. I would make sure that you have your emergency plan in every room and it's posted clearly, bright, bold colors, that sort of thing, and keep it next to the telephone. There should also be a fire drill plan, tornado wind drill, and an unexpected events plan as well. So safe environments, we're going to talk about this in the next chapter. We'll talk about indoor environments and outdoor environments, and we'll look kind of at the set of licensing that exists. So indoor safety. What do we care about indoor safety? We care about furniture placement, traffic flow, if there are rugs, how we're going to store things, and how cleanup procedures exist. If you can help with cleanup and indoor safety, that'll make your job a lot easier in this environment. So security, I need you to know this. In child care facilities, security is the absolute worst. In schools, security is the best. Not many strides are being made to change this. Security in child care facilities is not that good. Security is difficult to afford in child care facilities, so people go with the bare minimum. In schools, there are federal and state requirements on it. So building and site locations, here's where they exist, unfortunately. Unused classrooms, unoccupied shopping centers, corporate companies, unoccupied churches, older houses, and most of them don't have security in place. So if something were to go wrong, nothing's really in place for that to happen. So after a facility has been in place for a good week, there should be a fire safety plan. There should be people that come in, assess whether or not the environment is safe to work with. You should never use extension cords, and all electrical outlets should have safety caps attached to it as well. So when you're doing, when you're working with bathroom facilities, it's important that these bathroom facilities have actual child sinks, toilets, mirrors, and towel racks for children. 1 toilet and sink should be available for every 12 children, and this is something that could potentially cost money as well. if you have children with special needs under the American with Disabilities Association Act, you have to provide standard bathroom facilities and allow for kids to have access to that. And once again, this costs money. When you know that this costs money, it's something that you have to implement as well. So, fire drill plans, big project, big thing that you're doing in this class. You should have one alternative escape route from every room. So there should be the regular route and then an alternative escape route. The plan should be the door of every room, and I don't have this listed, but I would also say it should be colorful with pictures so that kids are able to read it and understand it. And as soon as somebody new comes in, you should review the plan with them. So, have the fire department come in for a day. They love doing this. They'll gladly come in and do a fire drill with you. Have adults lead children out of the building, have one turn off the lights and close the doors to the room, and give specific responsibilities for everybody to do. Try to have a meeting place outside. Don't go back into the building until it's been clear. Make sure that there's a designated location where everybody's accounted for as well. One of the things that you also need to do, I say you use a stopwatch to time each drill and record the results. You want to make sure that there's improvement, especially throughout the course of the year. And this is done in the building as well, and this is also done at the school level as well. Chart the results, share them with the students, and then let them know how they're doing with it as well. So furniture is important. This goes without saying. A lot of what I'm saying here is common sense. Try to avoid sharp edges or corners because the last thing you need is for a child to trip and bang and smack their head on something. Try to give kids individual storage space that doesn't interfere with anybody else, because this can also teach them ownership, which I think is important at an early age as well. Lighting, low windows, because your low windows are going to be your escape route. Glass doors to prevent injuries if they're broken, that's important. Make sure that they have safety glass. Cover with screens to stop insects, and you should have good drapery and blind cords that can be pulled to prevent sun from getting in, and sometimes you want the sun to come in, and you want to make sure that you don't want a child to get tangled up in them as well. So natural lighting is great. If you can try to balance between natural lighting and artificial lighting, that's good. The heating and cooling systems, this is a federal regulation, between 68 and 85 degrees always. So indoor air quality, kids are more likely to be exposed to indoor air pollutants than outdoor ones, things like asbestos, smoke, radon, lead, chemicals, carbon monoxide. We are coming from a state that's high in asbestos. You got to keep that in mind. Some of these other things, I think it's environmental. We talked about that earlier in the course, but state of Pennsylvania is high in asbestos, and you need to know that. And there is a strong correlation with asthma in these pollutants. Newer buildings are going to be compliant, but older buildings aren't going to be. So outdoor safety, we're going to talk about this in the next chapter. This is the major project for the class. And you're going to get to assess outdoor environments and see what they look like and how they're presented. So public parks stink. Don't use them. This is your last resort. You have zero guarantee of the people that are there because they're open to the public. You might find people using drugs. You might find needles, razor blades on your public parks. You have to be completely aware of your surroundings and have a lot of staff if you're going to use a public park. And they're going to be, there could be animal waste, there could be glass. This is a last resort. You don't want to do this unless you absolutely have to. So, requirements of structures. Here's the big one that I want you to focus on. Posts should be sunk 12 to 18 inches below ground surface and anchored with metal pins. That's something that I'm going to have you look at when you're assessing, the facilities. And the play equipment should be no taller than 6 to 9 feet. And swings should be, for moving items like swings, 15 feet should be the distance between that and other objects. So I give you some purchasing guidelines from outdoor equipment. You can read these on your own. This is something that you're going to have to be looking at when you're doing your final project for the course. So take a minute and take a look at those. Sandboxes. Kids love sandboxes. Unfortunately, so do animals. And because of that, this creates a problem if they're not covered, because the kids will be playing with the sandbox and they'll discover a nice little surprise in there. So before you let the kids in an outdoor sandbox, you have to make sure that you sweep it, you clean it, and it's done in between play sessions. Don't depend that a covering is going to keep stuff out. It's not.